I think we'll go ahead and start. And we have Dr. Tusky and students from Bradley University who will be speaking to us about when past meets present, modern day slavery and abolitionists, and they're each presenting their papers and information on the Coalition Against Slavery. Dr. Tusky, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us. And I want to start saying thank you to the organizers for inviting us, and particularly to Bill Furry, who made lots of efforts to have us here, to our dean, Dr. Robertson, who also approved our proposal to get funding to get here. So all of them work in order to help us to get today here to this talk. Let me tell you about a little bit of the history of this group. I'm going to talk for 3 minutes, 5 minutes the most, and then they will be the stars. They are the ones who are working on this. Literally is the easiest job I ever have as a faculty advisor. They are the stars, they work very hard, they do everything. I just basically say, oh yes, oh no, or something like that. So I'm very proud of them. How did the anti-slavery coalition started? Let me give you a little bit of history of this. In April 2010, we have a guest in our Armstrong lecture, who was Dr. James Stewart. And he is, as many of you might know, the founder of the group Historians Against Slavery. And he gave a great presentation on how historians, particularly those who are involved in studying abolition, should be united in order to avoid modern day slavery. His message really touched the heart of many of us at the time. Some of my faculty colleagues at the history department in Bradley and myself start thinking on that, on the fact that we are very privileged people because we have access to education, and we can do something in order to help to stop modern day slavery. So among them was Dr. John Williams, Dr. Amy Scott, Ralph Faber, that no longer is part of the department, and Dr. Robertson was also interested, but being chair at the time was difficult for her to join us. Still, we decided to found this anti-slavery coalition as a group that was the united efforts not only from faculty members, but from students too. So it was a very different group from many organizations at Bradley at the time. As any student group, we also found many challenges because seniors graduate, they leave, and we have to start again over and over. And that was for us our first 2 years. We have wonderful leaders, but they graduated and they were not able to pass that leadership in the way they would have expected, or in the way we would have expected. Finally, we got a very good leader who was able to train the next generation, and that has been wonderful because now we can really see what they have been doing. That's have been some of the challenges. So I wanted to talk about a little bit of the original idea that we have in terms of how to use history to end the modern day slavery. And basically, some of us had the background, and most of my colleagues from their field is American history. John, for example, teaches European history, and I teach Latin American history. So we start talking about, well, what were back then when slavery was abolished in the 19th century that led people to be successful as abolitionists? And we found different reasons. we also recognize that was a lot of racism going on at the time. So even when there were economic reasons leading to fight for abolition, many of those people benefited from those efforts, didn't achieve um, full citizenship because evidently they were recognized as humans, and some of them recognized as having rights, but not in the same level than the majority of the population. So we start thinking, well, does that help us right now? No, probably no, but it can help us at the end of thinking how we can promote that the end of the slavery. What is the people who, at the end, are rescued from human trafficking could be benefit from this. We also, for example, start doing also or accumulating more research on the way slaves were used at the time in trying to promote the idea that back then and before the 19th century, slaves were used mostly in terms of labor, but nowadays we are really making the modern day slaves really to lose any kind of I'm forgetting the word that I'm going to use, but dignity, because we are using them beyond what it was used back then in the slavery. So based on that idea, we start promoting that as our main goal to teach or raise awareness at Bradley, that part of back then, in the 19th century and earlier than that, people at least recognized and didn't treat their slaves in the way that nowadays we are treating people who are victims of human trafficking. So based on that, we start looking for institutions that are working with victims of human trafficking. And we find, for example, the Department of Health. Can we show the next one, please? Oh, I forgot to mention that, but that you guys will mention that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that one. Yes, this one. So we start getting some information from the Department of Health and Human Services, and having and asking them for any kind of brochures and videos and any kind of material that could help us to disseminate that information at the Bradley community. So I want to show part of the video. Can we show the video, please? In which we started educating people. Can we turn? Switch back.
The abuse, it was horrendous. I was tortured. I never thought a human being would go through what I went through and live.
For this woman, we'll call her Sarah, the suffering began when she was kidnapped in her early teens. Forced to engage in stripping and prostitution, Sarah endured horrific physical and mental abuse.
Having gasoline poured on me while they held the match. Being kicked and stomped on, being drugged by my hair. having 15 guys circle me and stomp me, and I mean literally stomp me.
As traffickers moved her from city to city, town to town, fear, not shackles, kept Sarah from breaking free.
Fear of my family being harmed, fear of myself being harmed or killed, believing that my traffickers would carry out what they said they would do. Fear of no one believing me, going to the police was not an option at the time, so I thought I was brainwashed to believe that no one would help me. If anything, it would put me in more danger or even put me in jail.
Sarah's story is tragically typical for many victims of human trafficking, a modern-day form of slavery happening in the U.S., which forces tens of thousands of women, children, and men into brutal conditions for little or no pay. Many are forced into commercial sex. Others end up working in hotels and restaurants as domestic servants, on farms or in sweatshops. Esmeralda, a name we gave her, was just 11 years old when her mother in Guatemala sold her to a Guatemalan man who turned her into his sex slave. Smuggled into the United States, she endured long days of cooking, cleaning, and childcare, and nights of repeated rapes and brutality.
He told me that he paid money for me and that he can do whatever he wants with me. In that room where I used to sleep, he used to hit me, like, you know, I used to bleed and everything because we have a carpet in the room. It was blood everywhere.
While traffickers find some victims in the U.S., often their targets, like Esmeralda, come from other parts of the world: Latin America, Africa, the former Soviet Union, and Southeast Asia.
It's important to realize that although people might have been brought here willingly, when they do arrive to the United States, that they're put in positions that they had no idea they would be placed in. They're either forced into prostitution or some type of slave labor. It's important that we look at them as victims and not as criminals.
Jail could be better because, you know, people they will feed you and they know that you're there. But that house, nobody knows that I was there. I was like, that I won't do nothing. It's like, I'm not there.
Traffickers rely on brutal tactics, emotional and physical bondage, to enslave their victims.
He told me if somebody asks you if I'm your husband, just tell them I'm your brother or something. You better not say anything. If you say something, I'm gonna kill you. That was he told me. He used to get a knife and put it in my neck over here, so he was gonna kill me.
Traffickers use a variety of methods to keep their victims enslaved. We've seen everything from force, fraud, coercion, ranging from physical beatings and torture to psychological intimidation or threats to their family members back in their home country.
Human trafficking occurs across the U.S., in big cities, small towns, and rural areas. It's unlikely that victims will be found and rescued in significant numbers until the American public gains a much greater awareness of the horror of human trafficking. That's the goal of Rescue and Restore, a major public awareness effort launched by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to identify and assist the victims of human trafficking.
Since the campaign started, numerous victims have been identified and are now eligible for benefits and services they need in order to restore their lives.
The Rescue and Restore campaign reaches out to people on the front lines, those who have the best chance of coming into contact with victims, like faith-based communities, social service providers, health workers, and law enforcement officers.
Many victims don't come forward because they're afraid or because they don't realize that what's being done to them is wrong. Traffickers can control victims in many different ways, sometimes physically, through beatings, locked doors, or lack of food and sleep, but also psychologically. Psychological trauma, or the stigma or shame from being trafficked, can be so severe that victims aren't able to face the situation, but just hope that someday it will end. Traffickers often use threats against victims or their loved ones back home, including their children. And they convince victims that if they speak with police, the victim will be arrested, detained, or perhaps deported. So identifying and then building trust with victims is critical. And this campaign is designed to reassure victims of trafficking that it is safe to come forward and to show them a future free of violence and exploitation.
By watching out for signs of human trafficking, local organizations and service providers are helping to identify and rescue victims. Given Kachepa was just 11 years old when he was brought to the United States. He was an orphan, living in crushing poverty in Zambia, when a US-based trafficker promised him an education, free clothes, and the chance to earn money to build schools back home. All by singing in the boys' choir in churches across the US. But once here, Given recognized none of it was true, yet he couldn't just walk away.
Just the mind games are the biggest things, and the threats, and that, if you run away, or if you call the police or the INS or the US government, anybody you inform, they're not gonna have any interest in you. They're just gonna send you back. What good do you have to them?
Members of the Colleyville Baptist Church in Texas began to suspect that something wasn't right with the Zambian choir and came to the boys' rescue. You may come into contact with victims of human trafficking and not know it, so Rescue and Restore urges you to look beneath the surface and pay attention to clues.
There are a number of clues to identify a victim of human trafficking. Typically, we'll look for a lack of proper documentation, or maybe a well-rehearsed story that had been given to them by the trafficker. We'll also look for physical signs of abuse, and you might also find in the victim intense fear and depression.
Evidence of being controlled is another important clue. Knowing what questions to ask can help uncover victims of trafficking. Questions like, are you being paid? Have you been threatened? Where do you eat and sleep? And can you leave your job if you want to?
I was not free to move in and out the factory ground as I wish. I was forced to live in a very unclean housing and to eat ugly food.
Asking the right questions helped free Hao Trim from the unthinkable abuse she suffered as a garment worker.
They don't have food for us to eat. And in a small room with so many people inside, we have no electric fan and too hot in the daytime.
If you've met someone like Hao, Sarah, Esmeralda, or Given, who you think might be enslaved, take action. You may be the only outsider with a chance to speak to the victim. Contact the police if you suspect the victim is in imminent danger. Either way, call the National Human Trafficking Resource Center to activate local, on-the-ground support for the victim. The Resource Center is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with operators who can immediately connect victims to community groups that can help. The HHS Rescue and Restore campaign has set up a safety net of organizations across the country to help identify, rescue, and provide social services to trafficking victims. It's a modern-day underground railroad to help victims on the road to freedom.
The Rescue and Restore program is designed to assist victims in rebuilding their lives. Our national network of social service providers stands ready to provide victims with necessary services in their time of need. We are doing everything we can to help victims regain their dignity and become self-sufficient. Our goal is to see victims of human trafficking become survivors.
Trafficking victims, whether they are foreign-born or U.S. citizens, are eligible for benefits and services such as shelter, food, medical care, counseling, language assistance, job training, and education.
We help these survivors with the paperwork that they need to get the benefits and services that they're entitled to. We help them get past the language barriers they're facing. We help them do job training and ultimately secure the jobs they're looking for. We're going to try to get them help with documentation, ultimately help them apply for a T visa, which will give them permission to stay in the country for a certain period of time.
The HHS Rescue and Restore campaign provides a wide range of resources, lighting the way for organizations helping to lead victims out of the darkness of modern-day slavery. Both Esmeralda and Given's road to freedom began with the help of people they barely knew. With Esmeralda, a neighbor came to her rescue. It's been a long and sometimes painful recovery process, but with the help of caseworkers and foster families, both have persevered. Today, they are adapting well to living free in America, doing well in school, enjoying the mall, singing for the joy of it. You can play a crucial role in helping the thousands of human trafficking victims. Become a partner by joining the Rescue and Restore effort. Go to this website to learn more about human trafficking and how you can work with the Rescue and Restore campaign. You can also download or order free materials in a variety of languages. And you'll find special resources for law enforcement officers, healthcare workers, and social service providers. Please, look beneath the surface for victims. If you come into contact with a victim, call the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. You can make a difference.
So why I decided to show this video? Because in 2011 we have the Illinois representative of Rescue and Restore to come to Bradley to give a talk on modern day slavery, and she showed us this video. And in one of the classes that she showed the video, that's how she got the attention of this more steady leadership that we have at the Anti-Slavery Coalition. So I really believe on the power of this video because it really spreads the word. So that's when some students from the criminal justice program start getting very concerned on this, and that's why they have become the important leaders in our group. And now I'm going to leave that to the president and vice president of the organization.
Thank you, Dr. Dusky. We're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Melissa Zacharias, and I'm the current president of the organization.
My name is Grecia Ocampo, and I am the vice president.
So our primary goal is to educate the Bradley campus and community about the serious issue of modern-day slavery, also known as human trafficking, and the various forms it has taken, which includes sexual exploitation and labor exploitation. And so a lot of times we always get questioned, why are we so passionate about this issue? It's not your typical organization, not the typical issue. And I will say to them that I'm a proud aunt of 2 nephews and a niece, and I can't imagine any one of them or any person in my family having to go through the atrocities that the victims of human trafficking go through. And so I think to myself, why should anyone else? Everyone else comes from a family. Everyone is a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, a cousin, and an uncle. Why should everyone else have to suffer what victims of human trafficking suffer? And that's why I'm so passionate about fighting this issue.
And one of my biggest passions is helping people, and when I started learning about human trafficking, and really saddened me that people would go through this, and not just like sex trafficking, even labor trafficking, and people being exploited for uses of labor. I just feel like there's so much that we can do and should do to help these people, and that's why personally I feel like we need to inform about this issue to as many people as we can, and do all we can to help these people not be exploited like this.
So the other question that we're asked is, how did we learn about human trafficking? And I learned human trafficking through this book called Natasha's Inside the New Global Sex Trade by Victor Mallory. It was a very informative book. I actually learned this book through my mother. She told me, maybe you should research on this issue. It feels like something that you'll be interested in. I read it, and I couldn't stop reading it. It was a real page turner. It was a real eye-opening experience, talking about the different issues that the victims go through every single day. There's a particular story in the book that explains how an officer of the investigation unit for human trafficking cases, his name was called Moon in the book, he actually encountered a room filled with more than 10 girls, and he described how it looked with disgust. These women were malnourished. They were forced to go to the bathroom in a pail in the corner, and the smell was overwhelming. And another story in the book talked about how a woman who had rebelled was beaten almost to death by the traffickers. And after they were done beating the girl, each person took their turn raping her. So at the end, she remained lifeless, like a statue. And when I read this book, it just got me more passionate to fight against it. And that was the main book on how I learned about human trafficking. So at our first meeting, just as Dr. Delsey explained, we passed out DVDs that we had received from the Department of Health and Human Services. And in this first meeting, we introduced ourselves, introduced the exec board, the president, the vice president, the secretary, and the treasurer. We handed out the DVDs, just as the DVD looked beneath the surface. And we showed the DVD. We made sure we told them about our future plans, if they were really interested in becoming a member of the group, and so forth. And just as Dr. Delsey was explaining about the resources, the Department of Health and Human Services, just as the video explained, is a campaign to rescue and restore victims of human trafficking. So all these materials, some of the posters on the wall, there are the posters that we had ordered, and they're all free of charge. Everyone can just go to the order form. You can order posters, stickers, brochures, pamphlets, just as we have in the front there, some pamphlets, acceptance cards. It was a really great resource.
Okay, we also actually have a Facebook page in which we add students, old members and new members who are interested. And in our Facebook page, we post meeting times, we post facts, which is actually something really great that we started. Every few days or so, we would post a random fact about human trafficking, and we felt like this was a really good interactive way to just get people informed about a specific issue that we found. So like people would log onto their Facebook and see a notification, and they'd see this fact, and it's just something new that they would learn every day. We would also post stories that we would find, like whether in newspapers or online journals, and we felt that was something else that would educate these students. I mean, students are on Facebook almost all the time, and we felt like this was something that we could creative and something educational that we can do using Facebook. And we also would post any events that we would have. We felt that it was a great marketing tool that we used. We had an event which we posted on Facebook, and we had a lot of people attend. And we also announced fundraisers that we have. Whenever we need funds for an event that we had just recently last semester, we posted it on the Facebook page, and we had people coming, and it was a pretty good turnout for our fundraiser. And we just feel like it's a really good tool to use, not just Facebook. We might even get a Twitter account and get people, to be interactive and follow and like post facts and post stories. And we just feel like this is a good way to interact with students, especially since they're on their phone almost like 24/7. So it's just a good way to reach out.
So we're actually going to share some of the facts that a lot of the students have posted on our Facebook page. These are really eye-opening facts, and a lot of people did like it that we used Facebook to post these facts that maybe a lot of people did not know about, and so forth.
Yeah, and these are some of the facts that we posted on the page. Like, for example, human traffickers are increasingly trafficking pregnant women for their newborns. Babies are sold on the black market, where profit is divided among traffickers, doctors, lawyers, border officials, and others. A mother is usually paid less than what is promised, and she might receive as little as a few $100s for her baby.
And in some instances, mothers did not receive payments at all because they themselves were abducted, and their children, their babies, were taken away from them by force.
Also, according to the FBI, California harbors 3 highest child sex trafficking areas in the nation, which include Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego.
The average entry of an American minor into the sex trade is 12 to 14 years old.
And of the 2,500 cases under investigations in the United States, more than 1,000 involve children.
And so So these are negative facts, but at the same time, we post more hopeful facts that create hope. And so, for example, we had learned and posted on the Facebook page that Sudan has become associated with slave redemptions, in which they are aid groups that pay traffickers to free their slaves. And it's a bit controversial because a lot of people do not like that you're giving traffickers more money.
And also, the state of Massachusetts was named among the highest improved in the United States in 2012 after it passed wide-ranging anti-trafficking laws.
And it's very great hope to give to human trafficking victims because in 2012, Mexico passed an anti-trafficking bill that establishes preventative and punitive measures and provides aid to the victims.
Also, on August 2010, the Illinois Safe Children Act was signed into law by Governor Pat Quinn. The law protects children in Illinois from being forced into the sex trade and gives law enforcement additional tools to fight the human trafficking groups that exploit them.
We're also going to take the time to share some of the stories that we also post on the Facebook page.
Okay. So one of the stories that we posted was called "The Prayer of a Sex Trafficked Child," and this is a quote that best summarizes the story. Dark perversion and sadistic domination that exploited young girls and boys as objects for the pleasure of paying customers is a painful story of forces that vandalize the very core of my soul. And one of the other stories that we also posted on the Facebook page was called "Guatemalan Mother Seeks Stolen Daughter Returned from U.S." And basically what the story was about is in November 3rd of 2006, that's when they stole the woman's daughter. Her name is Loida Rodriguez, and this was an interview with CNN. A direct quote from the article is, "I had left to go shopping. When I came back, I did not realize that a woman was following me. When I entered my house, my daughter stayed on the patio, and that was when she was taken." Now, the 7-year-old girl is at the center of an international custody dispute. She is a child with two identities in two countries with two sets of parents who claim her as their own.
And so again, we have more stories that create hope within society that actually talks about some individuals who took the laws into their own hands to try and help these victims. The first one, Argentine mom rescues hundreds of sex slaves. She was a typical mother, trying to take care of her daughter. And her daughter went to a doctor's appointment, but she never came back. And so the mother, after having little help from the police, she took the initiative to launch her own investigation. So this mom actually went into brothels and posed as a prostitute. And it was there where she was seeking an additional goal, which was to rescue sex slaves and helping them return to their normal lives. And we also posted about the president's speech that happened on September 25th, 2012. In this speech, President Obama gave the speech that explained the steps that they've been taking in the past and will take in the future to help them end modern slavery. And then this particular story, 19 arrested in Peking prostitution stings. We actually talked about it at a meeting once before, and we felt it was important to post it on Facebook to make it establish that trafficking is a lot closer to home than we realize.
Okay. We also had a fundraiser last semester that went really well. Pretty much what this fundraiser was for, we had a Sheriff Dart from Cook County come, and we were not able to get funding because it was a last minute event that we had planned, and we were not able to get funding through our SABRC, which is the Student Activities Budget Review Committee, which is what they do is they fund organizations' events. But since ours was a last minute event, we were not able to get funding. So we came up with the idea of having a bake sale to fundraise and to be able to provide payment for the sheriff. And pretty much we sold different kinds of cupcakes, quiche, cookies, and flan, and we had it right at the student center, which was a pretty good location because we have students going to class, coming from class to go to their dorms. So it was a pretty good turnout that we had. And we also were actually wearing our t-shirts. Yeah, we were wearing our t-shirts, and what's good about our t-shirts is that it has a lot of facts. So people would ask us about what we were about and like what we do in the campus. And this was a good way to also get attention for our group and get bring out more members to the Anti-Slavery Coalition. So besides getting funding for an event, we actually started getting more attention from other students on the campus.
And as Especia was explaining, we had the privilege of having Cook County's Sheriff Thomas J. Dart to come and talk about human trafficking and the efforts he has taken to fight against the issue. And particularly, the sheriff founded the Internet Sex Crimes Unit, which actively pursues child pornography and human trafficking cases. And because of this, it produced the foundation for his federal lawsuit against Craigslist. And because of this, it ended where the adult services section on Craigslist was removed entirely. We had a pretty good turnout. There was approximately 30 to 50 individuals who came to listen to the Sheriff Dart. And we're going to present some pictures to prove that he was actually there. That he took with him. It was a really good turnout. A lot of people were really engaged in the conversation. Even after the presentation was over, individuals rushed to him to ask him more questions and ask about different stories that they had heard in the news or they had read in the articles. Now we're going to talk about where we got the t-shirts from. We actually found t-shirts on a Facebook page, and it's titled Buy Shirts to Free Modern Slaves. The shirt costed $13 each, and all of it went to the International Justice Mission, which works to free slaves as well as provide counseling and aftercare. And the International Justice Mission is a human rights agency that secures justice for victims of slavery, sexual exploitation, and other forms of violent oppression. They were really excited when we were trying to get these t-shirts, and they're a very great organization to work with. And this close-up of our shirts with us wearing them, because we actually did enjoy having it. As Garcia has said before, a lot of people want to stop us and read what the shirt says. I get a lot of attention at work as well. They're interested in reading what does that say. Can you please hold on a minute? Let me read it entirely. And when they actually read, they're actually in awe and amazement that
Even just
happening.
wearing it around campus, like wearing it to class, people will ask, oh, well, like, what does your shirt say? And they'll start asking questions about if there's a group here, like, and then, yeah, we're the Anti-Slavery Coalition, and then it just gets, I feel like this shirt, it gets the conversation going, and it makes people ask questions, which is exactly what we want. It sparks an interest in people just walking around campus.
Actually, Elizabeth, our treasurer, is going to talk about the ton of oppression where human trafficking was presented as well.
Before I start, I'm going to just say why I'm personally really interested in Anti-Slavery Coalition and what really got me started about it. As Melissa said, I'm the oldest of three, and I have a younger sister who's 17. And at the time when I first started really getting interested, she was about 15. So I couldn't imagine somebody doing that to her. And then I also have a little brother who's 11, and then I have a host of younger cousins that I really care about because family is really important to me. So I couldn't imagine that happening to them. Then another reason is why, it's not human trafficking, but it really touched me because I am a survivor of sexual abuse. So this really hits home to me, and this is why, like, one of the reasons why I'm really involved, or why I really care, or really advocate for this group, because it really raises awareness. Because, like, in the documentary, you said, like, somebody could be being sexually abused or sexually exploited, and you just don't know. And that's what happened with me. And so you can get started with this event. This event is called the Tunnel of Oppression, and as being involved in here, I was the president of this group, of this student organization. And what we did here is that we constructed our entire student ballrooms into a series of tunnels that people walk through, and we take them to different forms of oppression. And what the event was made to do was just to raise awareness or have people step out of their comfort zone to realize, hey, this is what happens, this is what goes on. And so as you can see in a few of the pictures here, that we have a little bit of statistics, we have pictures, and this picture right here was actually the homelessness skit. And we we try to bring it across through, we could bring it across through acting. We had some video representation as well. And to take you through like a few of the different forms of oppression that we went through, one of the tunnels were that we had domestic violence and child abuse. And then at the beginning we had like we had a video showing from this movie called For Color Girls, and it shows this woman's boyfriend who physically threatens her and physically threatens her kids, and he actually holds the kids outside the window and he drops them. And then you would walk down the tunnel. Then we have a whole bunch of pictures and statistics of kids who have been abused, and so we have pictures of them. We have statistics showing. Then we also have statistics showing of domestic violence. And at the very end, we had a story of a child who had been beaten and burned by his father because his father said that's the only way he can get him to be quiet because he was crying. And then another skit was at the very end, we had the human trafficking skit. And that was probably one of the more impactful skits or forms during the tunnel of oppression. And what we had was that people were able to see pictures, which is this one up here. People were able to see pictures. They were able to read statistics. They were able to read facts for a little bit. And then we introduced a friend of mine who did the skit. Well, two friends of mine who did the skit. Was that we gave them a thing because when people are human trafficked, a lot of times they're put in these really terrible, horrible conditions to where they're sleeping on a mattress on the floor, if they're lucky. So the scenario that we gave and we really tried to make it really close as possible or very impactful as possible. A friend of mine, she dressed in sort of like a lingerie style, kind of wear like a slip and like a really short skirt. And she put makeup on herself to make it like she had bruises and marks. And then there's a guy, and then we had a guy who approached her in sort of like an aggressive manner, saying you're mine, I pay for you. And my friend, the girl, she played the person of a drug person or manipulated, very confused kind of style. And the scene would cut off at the end to where she was like, I just want to go home, or don't touch me, and then the lights would cut off. And that was really impactful because we wanted to raise awareness of how bad human trafficking is. And we had a really good turnout about it. We ran it for 2 days, and I forget the numbers, but we had well over 500 students, faculty, and people from the public that went through it. We ran it for 2 days. It was really, really impactful. And this is one of our future events. It's a documentary film called Lives for Sale, and it's a documentary on immigration and human trafficking, in relation to the American dream. This film is a new investigative documentary exposing the painful, rarely seen human side of illegal immigration, especially the growing black market trade in human beings. I think this would be a really good film because it really shows here in America, because oftentimes a lot of, at least for me, a lot of students that I've talked to about it, or I've talked to different classes about human trafficking on campus, they just don't think that happens here. They don't think that it happens here in America, and I think this would be a really good film to show awareness to people, saying hey, it's a lot closer than you think. It happens right here on your home. It happens right here on your surface.
Oh, and also with the Lives for Sale documentary, since it concerns immigration, we have an Association of Latin American Students on campus, which I'm the vice president of. So we might, there's actually going to be a collaboration event with the Association of Latin American Students and Anti-Slavery Coalition, which is a good thing because it works when student organizations work together, and especially because it concerns immigration and human trafficking, and these are two issues that immigration is a big issue right now, but human trafficking needs more attention. And the fact that President Obama has spoken about it in his speeches means that there's more light coming to this issue. So having 2 student organizations on campus, having an event like this, I feel like it will bring a lot of attention to other students and say, well, our members from this organization are gonna come and their friends are gonna come, and then members from Anti-Slavery Coalition are gonna come, and I feel like it'll increase our turnout, but it will also increase our impact on campus.
I want to point out one more thing, like, something I forgot to say. Thank you for mentioning that. Like, with the tunnel of oppression, there is so much like, it was, in addition to being me, like, there were about 9, 10 people on the committee. And so it definitely does work in numbers. It works a lot better. And then, even the people on the committee, we also got, I don't even remember how many different student organizations involved, but there are so many people that were involved that made it, definitely made it a more successful event.
Definitely, and actually for the tunnel of oppression, I was a part of it. I volunteered. I was a tour guide, and I personally went through the tunnel first, and I saw how intense it was, and it impacted me because there were tunnels that I had a reaction to. Like, there was the Border Patrol tunnel, which was on an issue about immigration, and I'm Hispanic, so that's something that really hit me and hit close to home. And then there was the human trafficking tunnel, which also hit me just because over the years I've been getting so educated on this issue. And then there was a tunnel on gay rights, which, and one of my best friends is homosexual, and it just impacted me so much because I've seen how much he has struggled. So this tunnel was definitely, like Elizabeth said, a collaboration between so many people, and also when I was tour guiding, I saw people react to this, and it was a really good event. I think the number was like about 750 students, both days, yeah. And it got a lot of reaction. I saw people getting really emotional about it, and that's something that was an eye-opener. I felt like that's a really good event. You know you have a good event when people react so intensely to it. And we actually got attention from the press as well. We were, Norris Chase, who's the Assistant Multicultural Center director, was interviewed, and they actually recorded while I was giving a tour. We had a camera follow, and they showed clips of it on the television, and
it was in our school's newspaper for 2 weeks in a row. Then in addition to that, it was also in the Peoria Journal-Star. It was online on the Peoria Journal-Star. It was on a few different news channels. Like, it was on Central Illinois Proud, and I don't remember anywhere else, because like, we had a lot of different news groups, because like it's probably one of the biggest events that we do on campus, and we had like a lot of different news groups that had come in, had went out, they interviewed students afterwards and got their reactions, got their personal feelings from it. But it was a really big event. And I know there's just last week actually, well, on Tuesday, there's another event where it was, another news report on the event as well. Like, it's pretty amazing to get all the publicity from this one event for pretty much what is all student ran organization. Like, everything that all that we did was, the students got the funding from the SABRC. The students put all those long tunnels together, which each tunnel is probably about 40 feet long, and you have to construct 2 of those as well. It's pretty impressive to see a group of students who are so passionate about raising awareness and getting people to step out of their comfort zone and making them realize that, hey, there are other things besides what's in our circle.
And just going back a bit on the tunnel oppression, I personally went through it as well, and I was contacted by Norris, and then the individual who was in charge of the tunnel about human trafficking, they were just asking me a little bit about advice, what would work, what wouldn't work, and I believe it was really great what she was able to put together for the tunnel. And just as they were saying, it was a very emotional ride. A lot of people actually came out of the tunnel crying just because of all the issues that are out there in society. A lot of individuals thought it was too many issues going on at once, but we always explain to them that, well, in reality, these issues are all happening at once. They're happening all around the world, and not only around the world, but locally as well. So I was really glad to also put it on Facebook. This is a ton of oppression. Please go ahead, volunteer as an actor, a tour guide, or actually go through the tunnel themselves. It was a really great turnout. I was really proud of everyone that actually went through it, to actually open their eyes to see the forms of oppression that are out there in the world. And another particular event that we will have in the future is a human trafficking global conference. And Christina Bain, I constantly keep in contact with her through the internet during the summer, throughout the fall semester. She's actually a director of the program on human trafficking and modern slavery at the Clark Center for Human Rights Policy. And every semester she explained to me that she hosts a global online conference which anyone can listen to anywhere around the world with a computer. And that is her email address right now. You could go ahead and jot that down, and she will put you on the list of reserves for the global conference. Last semester, she said they had problems with technical issues, but that now they have a new center where they'll be able to put this global online conference together, and we will probably make this into an event to make sure that everyone who's interested, go into a computer lab, access a computer, and go ahead and view his PowerPoint. She explained to me there's actually a PowerPoint, and what's very interesting is that she said that you can actually type in questions and they will receive them and answer them accordingly. So we're very excited about this particular event. And another event that we will have is a presentation, and Dr. Dusky will explain to that in more detail.
This event is going to take place in April, and is on this other side of the positive or the hopes that some people have, how we can eliminate modern day slavery. Chori Laxmi Maharkan, she is working with a center called Friends of Needy Children in Nepal, and the service they provide is, as you know, there had been a huge extended civil war, long civil war in Nepal, and that had impacted a lot boys and girls, but for many evident reasons, mostly girls, because the fact that they are easily being sold by their parents in order to survive during this war, it has created huge this practice of having girls being a slave, and sadly, this is a practice that has been in Nepal since the 19th century, but it was kind of a stop for a while, and now with the Civil War has become a more common practice. Families are tricked, but many families are doing it on purpose, selling their kids, selling their young girls as a small income to survive, particularly if they have been affected by the war. So these women and another group of counselors have been working with these slave girls in Nepal. So what she's going to come and talk is not just only about the trauma these girls experience, but more importantly, how they are helping them to recover from this trauma, and how they are looking forward to help them in the future and the positive results that they are getting. So as you noticed in the presentation of Melissa and Brescia, we are not just trying to educate people in terms of the effects of modern day slavery, but we are also trying to raise the hope that if people get involved in these kind of groups, whatever group, trying to stop modern day slavery, there is hope that we can eradicate that. So that's why we try to have the balance of exposing or denouncing, but at the same time also encourage people to participate in different groups because positive results can come from this. I don't know if you want to close the presentation, please.
So as you can see, we're a small group, yes, but a lot of the members are very passionate on what we do. And I'm proud to say that although I'm a junior now, pretty soon I'm going to be graduating and I have to think about what I want in life. But what I really want to do is to have a career job as an investigator for human trafficking cases or become a victim advocate for these victims. I'm really proud of what I do. I'm really proud of what our group was able to achieve, even though we did have setbacks. Talking about no funds, we had to find these funds ourselves. We purchased our own shirts. We went through resources to make sure we did have a shirt. For many years, we had no shirt. But I'm very proud for the organization, and I hope it keeps on going. And even though I will graduate, I will still become an active member and help out all those individuals who need a little assistance and ideas and on future events.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm also a junior, and I will be graduating soon. And one of my biggest passions is to join the Peace Corps. So pretty soon after graduation, that's what I hope to do. And it's a 2-year commitment. So with my work abroad, hopefully once I come back, I can put all the skills that I have learned wherever it is that they will send me, and become a political activist for not just human trafficking, just human rights in general. And I am, like I said, like I had mentioned before, one of my biggest passions is helping people. So definitely joining the Peace Corps is #1 on my list. Coming back and just keep going on helping and making the world a better place. As cliche as that sounds, that's what I want to do with my life. Do you want to say something else?
Yeah, I'm a senior, so I will be graduating very soon. I'll be graduating in December, but as far as I want to do, like, there's so many opportunities that have come up for me, like, through doing things like this, and I don't know what I'm going to do after I graduate, actually. I know for sure that regardless of anything, I will be an advocate for abolishing human trafficking and raising awareness towards oppression. That's one of my passions. That's something I really love to do, so that will never leave me. Hopefully after graduation, I will either be going into an internship that actually where I'll be able to go hands-on and work with people who are being human trafficked and trying to get out of it, or people who work with those kind of people. So that's itinerary. That's what I really want to do, but we'll see how that works out. But I'm very, very proud of the group and all the challenges that we face. It's a lot harder than it seems.
And as we all know, or how we're always told, knowledge is power. That's exactly what we're trying to get across campus. And it's up to the students and faculty and what they want to do with the information. We received the information, and we gained a passion to actually create events to expose the campus of what is happening not only in the world but locally as well. So I want to go ahead and thank you, Dr. Chelsky, for allowing us to keep the group together. And I want to go ahead to thank all of you for listening to our presentation, and we hope that we informed you with a little bit more information that perhaps you guys did not know. And hopefully we got something out of that as well. Thank you.
Questions, ma'am? Yeah. Are you calling me? Not so much a question. It's a wonderful presentation, and I see your passion and your thinking globally with regard to what's think globally, act locally was an old slogan from about 30 years ago, I think. But have you, at the beginning of the presentation, they said we see these people every day that are being trafficked. You may, and maybe you've done it, start some sort of investigation in Peoria, where you are. Is it restaurants? Is it those dance clubs where the sheriff probably can handle, investigate in some way what you can do in Peoria? And you probably have done it, but I'm just thinking it helps. Because sometimes you think too globally enclosed. I think you don't have the impression that there's nothing you can do about it. You give us the impression that you're going to do it. But you might, maybe you've already investigated Peoria. Have you?
Yeah, well, go ahead first and then me.
Okay. Personally, well, for me personally, I haven't looked in Peoria. I used to go to school at Bradley. I'm from Chicago, and I've worked with people in Chicago personally. That's about human traffickers, and it does happen in Chicago a lot more than people think.
Oh, yeah.
It does dominantly happen when people go to, let's just say, males go to strip clubs. A lot of women who work in those places probably are being human trafficked. Whether they will admit to that or not, don't really know, but a lot of them really are. And I helped this was during the summer. I helped a lady who really wanted to get out of it, but she couldn't. Well, she couldn't, or there were things that surrounded it. And so me and about a team of 2 other people, we worked closely with her so then that way she wouldn't be placed in harm, we wouldn't be put in danger. So there are necessarily things that you definitely can do, and I know for sure. I won't say I know for sure, but I have a pretty good instinct that it happens. I know I have a pretty good instinct where I think it happens in Peoria.
Well, since the one sheriff, that's his mission.
Yeah.
It's probably leaked out to, maybe the sheriff would be a place to start, but maybe you have already talked to him and say, to what extent do you know about this in Peoria?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that we always, as usual, place the blame on the victim, but we never see that we are also the consumers of that.
Yes.
Because we are the consumers of the cleaning ladies, we are the consumers of prostitutes. I mean, not us, but as public. So one of the things that I do every semester with my students is at some point raise awareness, particularly with boys in my class, is I travel to Mexico very often, so I have to take a cab in the nights coming from the airport to home. And particularly the cabs at night, they have cards on the top of the cab, and they have cards announcing different massage parlors in Peoria. Mm-hmm. So I always tell my students, if you want to do something and perhaps you don't want to be involved, the only thing I ask you is not to patronize those places. Because in the moment that we stop the demand, we are going to stop also the provider of that service. So it's a small limited thing. Perhaps we are not working with the police, but raising awareness among the students on the fact that if we stop consuming, we will also contribute to stop the problem.
Yeah.
Young lady, I glad you're telling the boys that. I try to tell them, but they won't listen to me. Do you really think that overall, I mean, this evil we're talking about, slavery, human trafficking, all of that, it seems, I mean, it's done in different ways, but it seems like, to me, the evil is just been practiced through history in different ways, and we've got the current evil we've got to deal with. We have to fight it, but I'm not so sure whether it's worse now than it's ever been before. I mean, it is very bad, but I'm not too sure whether it's that much worse than it has been before. That's just some food for thought.
I personally think it's worse because.
Could you guys come to the middle so we can see you?
Oh, yes, so sorry. I never meant to be rude. Sorry. That's okay. I personally think that it's worse because slaves in the 17th century, 18th century were very pricey. To afford to buy a slave, it means that it's almost like the price of a car, for example, nowadays. And if we think on the price of buying a slave nowadays, is very minimum in comparison to how much it costs to buy a car. That already is giving us the idea that how we are minimizing the dignity of these people involved in modern day slavery.
And then, in addition to that, it's like, even now, like how they say the average age of entrance is from 12 to 14. There are numerous cases, like I saw this documentary called Nefarious, and there are numerous cases where you have little kids who are like 6 and 7, or you have people who raise their kids from birth. It happens in all kinds of places, but like you have people who raise their kids from birth to be trafficked. Like that's all that they go around. So like me personally, like to me it's worse. Or if you want to say it's pretty much neck and neck. Like cause like although in slavery, at least from a lot of cases, just just regular slavery, like in a lot of cases the kids at least were allowed to grow up at least until a little bit at least. But like nowadays you have people who are raising their own children. So like you can't imagine why a parent would raise their children to be trafficked. And like that's what happens in a lot of cases. Or parents who sell their kids to be trafficked, or parents who make their kids feel terrible because they can't, the parents themselves can't support the family. So like there's a lot of other factors to include as far as like why people are being human trafficked as well.
And sorry, I'm going to jump on that. In the past, in order to get the manumission, to get the freedom of a slave, the whole family would work to get the freedom of one of the members of the family. This is exactly the opposite of what is happening based on the Elizabeth and many people said about that not only parents or any relative, most of the kids who are involved in human trafficking in the United States, just in the United States, is because a parent or a relative is involved. Yes.
We're going to see a movie tomorrow, Slavery by Another Name, which is probably the same subject, is it? Or is it? Slavery by Another Name.
Not quite.
I'm not sure.
Interview your sheriff, please, and ask him what he knows about it. Embarrass him if you have to. Or her, I don't know what it is.
It's particularly interesting because not in recent years, but in Peoria, there's been allegations and investigations that a particular strip club in downtown Peoria is where it's related to this is strip club, and there's allegations that human trafficking is happening, and I believe the strip club is not even 20 minutes away from campus.
And what is the chief of police or the sheriff doing about it?
I believe they're just continuing on with investigations.
I think it's under suspicion, but
I don't think they have enough evidence to actually.
They don't have enough evidence, as they say, to.
You've talked to them?
So
they cleaned up.
Yeah, that's fine.
A headline in the paper. The sheriff is cracking down on trafficking.
Yeah.
Internationally, do you have cooperation with the organizations that you're involved with by nations in Africa, Latin America, and Asia?
Unfortunately, I wish we could say that, but no, unfortunately. We're focused on at least raising awareness among the students, because if you have contact with college students, many of them live in a bubble, and their world is very limited. So, and they always blame on other things, but they don't pay attention to really what is going on. So that's our goal. Just very limited, but with the intention of trying to break that bubble among these kids.
And maybe in the future we will reach internationally, but right now the issue is a lot of students have the idea that, oh, we have all this intention to international countries and stuff like that, and that it's not happening at home. So first, we're gonna focus locally to make sure that, you know what, it is happening in every state around the country. And as soon as maybe they begin to realize that that is true, then maybe we'll enlarge the bubble even more to include countries. Maybe in the future have a big conference that with individuals from other countries or other continents as well. So hopefully that's a big picture.
And sorry, I know that you wanted to talk, but I was going to mention, for example, the previous president had kind of an encounter with a girl who was attending to one of the events, not these ones, but previous to the events that the current executive board had organized. And she had this encounter with this girl because the girl was making fun of the video that we were showing. And she was saying, well, these people are stupid because why they don't take a phone and call the police? so she really, Heather, the president at the time, got very upset and turned in that moment in the middle of the video and said, have you any idea if they don't speak English, how the people are going to understand them? Do you have any idea that perhaps they don't have access to a phone? So that's exactly the kind of kids we are working with. So that's why we need to start from that. So that's why our efforts look limited, but in many cases it's because of that.
Yeah, definitely, because a lot of these students aren't aware about that this is happening right here in the United States. Like going back to the tunnel of oppression, when we passed the human trafficking tunnel, one of the facts that we as tour guides were giving the students was that Chicago had just, a New York Times article had named Chicago as one of a central hub for human trafficking. And a lot of students at Bradley actually are from Chicago, like myself and Melissa are, and Elizabeth. And even like I learned this, and a lot of students were shocked. And it's just, that's basically what our main focus is, trying to get these students to see, you know, this is happening right in our backyard. Like Chicago is like right, not even 2.5 hours away from Bradley University, and a lot of us call that city home, and it's happening right there.
Well, you are a microcosm of the larger community, so I dare say that most people in Chicago are unaware, and most people downstate are too. So it has to start somewhere. Are there other questions?
Where does the money for the T-shirts go? You said it goes to some organization, some.
It goes to the International Justice Mission,
Oh.
in which they're gonna use the money to help out the victims get their lives back together.
That's a start.
Concerning the so-called undocumented folk in this country from Russia, Poland, and Hispanics from Latin America and so on, what is the cooperation that you get from the people in those particular circumstances?
You want to go first? Well, we don't have any cooperation on that. What we do, for example, is to reinforce that with the students, for example, in our events, raising that question that if you're in a restaurant, have you looked who is your waiter? Have you looked who is perhaps cleaning the bathrooms? Because it's a good start. We don't have, as we mentioned, we don't have many resources. We don't have extended network, but by making these kids to be aware that perhaps the person who is in the kitchen preparing the food might be part of a human trafficking network, we are trying to help. Other than that, we don't have.
You're working as a raising awareness on your campus. They graduate, they go off, they raise awareness where they work, where they live.
Exactly.
Like we start with the students, and those students will go on to graduate. And we have international students at Bradley, so just starting from the students and like getting these students educated, and these students will graduate and they'll go on to in their fields of careers, and they'll know that this is happening, and like in each of these different fields they'll try to do something, and if they're international they'll go back to their countries and and try and do something there. And that's pretty much what we're focusing on. Like with the logo, look beneath the surface, that's what we're trying to get these students to do and take a second look and not just assume that these people are okay.
Sometimes I challenge the individuals who ask me what organization I'm a part of. I tell them, I understand that human trafficking is not your conversation starter. It's not a topic you're gonna discuss at dinner time or go to a restaurant. So I tell them, this is the information I'm gonna present to you. So please take the time to actually start a conversation with a random person or another friend. Like, pass the information along. Make human trafficking a topic that perhaps you will discuss at dinner time. Because I understand that a lot of individuals for dinner time, they talk about future careers, education, politics, the newscast. So why don't you go even further and talk about human trafficking a little bit and share the information so that information can be shared to another individual or another, produce another network.
Do you have something to say?
It's just like to go back. I love the collaboration of the different student organizations and in the tunnel of oppression. Like even after my friend or a few friends who did the human trafficking skit, and then me myself who did the homeless person skit. Like we were like approached. Well, at least I was approached, and people have offers to like pay for me, like to buy me meals and pay for things because they felt they were that impacted by it. And then even in the human trafficking skit, like I know my friend has told me that like that people who were about to like run up on the stage and like punch the guy in the face, all of they were just like acting. So it really does become impactful. And it's just like when you can start with a group of students, and there are all kinds of students that went through the tunnel, and different people who went through the tunnel. But you can start with students, like we're trying to pop that bubble of saying like, hey, this is what really goes on in the world because you're about to enter it.
I'm going to jump. I know that you have a question, but one of my students was exactly one of the kids who wanted to punch the guy. So in class, we discussed again the tunnel of oppression, and he said that he was very upset. I said, well, this is right now when you are a student with almost no money and you cannot consume girls in this way. Keep that in mind when you are a successful businessman and you are throwing a party for your associates or partners, not to consume the same things. The same hate, the same feelings that you have right now, keep those in mind, because in the future, I want you don't to forget those things. So, but those are little things. Don't make many things.
Yeah. Mine's really more of a suggested. We're history-oriented people here, and I would suggest that you've got a good thing going here. Keep it documented. Keep an archives. Yeah. So when we come back a few years from now, we can investigate and go, oh, this is what they were doing. This is where it all got started. I loved your introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Extra large.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I also teach a studies class.